Well, hello everyone, and welcome to The New Normal, a series of virtual discussions intended to help us get out of our comfort zones and debate different perspectives of the future. My name is tribalism, and I'm your host. On this episode, we have Nichol Bradford giving a talk on unlocking human potential with artificial intelligence. Nichol Bradford is the CEO of the Willow Group and the executive director of the Transformative Technology Lab. Prior to becoming a leader in transformative technology, Bradford was a senior executive in video games with responsibility for strategy, operations, and marketing for major brands that include Activision Blizzard, Disney, Vivendi Games, and Vivendi Games. Nichol is a graduate of the Singularity University GSP15, has an MBA from Wharton School of Business and Strategy, and a BA in Marketing from the University of Houston. She is the fellow of the British American Project, serves on the board of the Brandon Marshall Foundation for Mental Health, and is a former team member of the Council on Foreign Relations. So following her talk, we will go into breakout rooms for about 20 minutes. Afterwards, we'll return to this main room for an open discussion. If you're watching this episode on Facebook, you can join us in Zoom by visiting thenewnormalseries.com. Now, without further ado, here's Nichol Bradford.
Hi, sorry, it took me a moment to, let me turn on my camera. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me. When I was asked to do this talk, I enthusiastically agreed because I'm so deeply interested in connecting with people who are passionate about AI because it's such an enabling technology for the kind of thing that I am deeply, deeply into. So with that, I'm going to share my screen with you and just share a little bit about what transformative technology is. And also, I'm interested in I know we're going to do a breakout and all of that, and you'll have longer Q&As, but as you think of questions as I'm speaking, I would love for you to put them in the chat so that I can take a look at them while you're in your breakouts, and then I'll start with those when we come back into the Q&A. And I've also kept this deck a little deliberately brief so that we can talk more about the questions that I think that are raised and posed and possible because of artificial intelligence versus, me just pouring a lot of information out. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my screen. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so as mentioned, I am the executive director and co-founder of the Transformative Technology Lab and Conference in San Francisco, or based in Palo Alto. We're actually, though, a global organization. We have members in 72 countries and 450 cities. And, transformative technology is all of the exponential technologies applied to the human inner landscape to develop and support flourishing, of which AI is a really big part. The acceleration of this category that I've seen across the last 5 years has had a great deal to do with the acceleration in machine learning, the acceleration in sort of like the beginnings of AI, and then we've had wonderful speakers at our conference who are interested in actually doing AGI and what that might mean for humanity. So all of these technologies have a use for the inner landscape. One of the things that was really funny, so my background, as Todd mentioned, before I did this, I actually was in video games, and I was in core games for a little over 14 years, which my last post included leading operations for World of Warcraft China. So I ran the entire back end of, at that time, one of the biggest branch of the biggest MMO in the world with that kind of payment infrastructure. And I also did go-to-market. So, really big online games. And then I went on a meditation retreat, and I had a profound psychological experience. Basically, what happened was that I had, after 10 days, I had a dramatic decline in rumination. And so rumination is sort of the inner chatter that, it would be great if mostly what it talks about is cookies, but it doesn't. typically it's self-critical or, a bunch of other things. And so when my rumination dropped, my happiness increased and I became quite fearless. And I became really interested in, wow, this happened for me in 10 days. What might this happen if we applied technology to it and made it scalable and accessible and affordable? So the specific things that we look for when we talk about the inner landscape is human flourishing. And that really is the full scope of psychological health. So these are the three big buckets that we look at and that we're very interested in. And this is what it sort of specifically means. So for mental and emotional well-being, we're interested in technologies that decrease stress and anxiety and then increase all of these other things. And for social and emotional wellness, we're interested in things that are increased or can be increased, like self-awareness, emotional self-regulation. And these in the second column are really the future of work elements. And then in the third category, we're really interested in leveraging technology for human purpose and potential. And then this is really about, expanding human capacity. And so the way to think about this is the first column is really exponential technology. And in the case of, this affinity community, artificial intelligence applied specifically to improve health through mental and emotional well-being. The second column, it's AI applied to social and emotional wellness to have a meaningful impact on the future of work and human connection. And in the third column, it's exponential technology, specifically artificial intelligence, applied to augment and expand the cognitive and emotional capacity of human beings. And so wherever there's an exponential technology, and in this case, and for those of you who are interested in this, wherever there's AI, there is a path for human well-being applications. Now, certainly not all AI is transformative tech, but there's the potential of it, and which is why I'm deeply interested in this community. And so, I'll stop sharing. And so some of the things that, when I talked to Todd about this, he said that this is a community that really likes to talk about the challenging questions, and what are the areas of possibility, and then also what are the things to look out for. For the most part, the same people I think who are truly deeply and in some cases justifiably worried about the challenges of AI, whether it's algorithmic bias or some of the people who are worried about what happens when we actually get AGI, also have the same concerns about my work specifically, because if you think about it, and certainly all of you, because you're up to date on emotion recognition, pattern recognition, you're up to date on, the things that machine learning allows us to see in biosignal parsing from person to person, the ability of, AI and machine learning to actually allow the marriage of signal plus context. Because when those two things come together, the inner landscape becomes externally knowable. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. What might be causing me a stress response in my body could be stress, it could be fear, but for someone else, they could have just fallen in love for the very first time, right? A lot of things could trigger a stress response, but what is coming, and AI and machine learning is really driving all of this, is that the signal is being married to the context, which could be pulled off of the calendar, it could be pulled off of location. It's just all of the tremendous amount of data that's starting to come together. And when those two things come together, what is private, what is unknowable, much of it becomes truly known, or not truly known, but it becomes knowable. Is it good? Is it infallible? Absolutely not. It's just at the very beginning. But, you know, you guys all know that what you're working on, it's all on exponential curves. And so the half-lives of, you know, what is known and what is knowable moves very, very quickly. Some of the things that I'm the most excited about as it relates to AI and then also to, you know, robotics. One of my favorite products in the world is a product called Moxie that just came out. And it's a social wellness robot. And the reason why I love it is because they did a lot of very smart things. They did a lot of right things in the design. And so it's a little robot, and it was built by someone who is ex-Pixar, whose desire was to build a child's best friend. And I know that worries many people, but build a child's best friend and an ally to parents. And so it's specifically in this area of social and emotional learning and social and emotional intelligence. And so a couple of things that they did right, really, really right, is one, the robot is only operational for 1 hour per day. And so what that means is that children can't binge. And so the children come back to the robot. And what's interesting is, like, right now, 90% of K through 12 teachers in the United States want social emotional content and programming for you know, I mean, when the classes were physical, but the bulk of the products in this place or in that space are sort of content drips, train the trainer. And so what this product represents, this robot represents, is social emotional learning, you know, in the home. And it's got the best in class academic grade. The robot sends children on missions. Oh, thanks, someone put that in there. Sends children on missions like, who is your best friend? And how does your best friend feel? And sends the children on missions for that. And so what I find so compelling about it, and the reason why I like to share the example, is that, you know, often one of the things that's talked about in child to adult success is the marshmallow test, which would be, for example, can a child wait? Can a child have patience? Can they delay gratification? And people talk about it as a measure of success, an indicator of future success. But how do you learn that? And so, you know, what Moxie is the first, I think, in a big explosion in the category, is that the robot is teaching patience because it's only available for an hour a day. The other thing that happens is that what they've done from a security standpoint is that if parents lose their password, then the company doesn't actually have the password, and all of the child's data is stored locally. So anything on their, like, facial recognition, their voice files, like, everything's stored locally. And so if the parent loses the password, then the robot is wiped. And so that's the start of the right type of security around it. Now, it still doesn't address it. You know, it doesn't address equity, which I think is a very important issue as it relates to AI. You know, and all of the transformative techs. It doesn't address equity because it's not an inexpensive device, but it is also among the first, which means that also, because it's exponential, the price curve will come down. But these are the types of things. There's a question about what sort of examples of products are out there. You know, there are actually so many that I didn't want to, like, it would have taken an hour to show you a ton. But imagine it's basically, actually, I'll go ahead and just pull some up so you can you can sort of have products in front of you to consider. Let's see. And a lot of this is, they are, from the mental and emotional well-being on, you have everything from Oura rings for sleep, you have meditation apps, you have the first product for ADHD video game, which is actually it trains the attention network, and also is using AI and machine learning to create neurofeedback loops. That's an example of one. There's gut biome products. I mean, really, it's sort of like across all the three pillars that I mentioned to you. The number of products that are out there. Here's a good example. Let me show you this. And this is just going to quickly show you. And this is a report that we have on our website that was done with an investment bank, where you can see some examples. So in meditation, there's Calm, Headspace, Muse. These are both hardware and software. In emotion, we really track the emotion recognition people who are all AI people. The other thing that I've seen is I've talked to a couple of researchers who are able to see cognitive load through the optical nerve, which is, on one side, sensor picking up, it's an optical sensor, but it's computer vision, which of course is also powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning. Achille in the focus column is the one that I mentioned to you, it's the very first digital video game that is cleared by the FDA for ADHD. And as I mentioned, they actually train the attention network, and they started with ADHD because, politically, that's kind of an easy one to get through because, there isn't anyone who's on the side of keeping children on molecules, like nobody, unless they need it. And so this is a really good alternative. And they've gone through, full clinical trials that it works. Halo is a transcranial stimulator. And so what this does is it accelerates task acquisition. And the research is DARPA research, as much neurotech is, where they were able to show that they could train sharpshooters or expert level snipers 40% faster for task acquisition from beginner to expert level with neurostimulation pre-task. And devices like this is not as much as that. It's more stimulation. It doesn't have a feedback loop on it yet. And it's the feedback loops that, again, use machine learning. BioBeats is a fascinating product using machine learning and algorithms. They were able to isolate the evidence of rumination in heart rate variability. So what this means is that as you start to go into a stress response, and it includes you talking to yourself. So basically when you're talking to yourself and saying terrible things, this device can pick it up. Happify is, also evidence-based, and they're doing a tremendous enterprise business. And this is on training positive psychology. Trip is a cognitive break that's VR-based. Ginger.io does some really interesting things, also requiring machine learning. And what they're doing is, they actually, they connect you to therapists directly who are on their platform. But the other thing they do is they do a lot of context monitoring with permission, because when you're depressed, often you have a big behavior change. So maybe you get up early and suddenly you start sleeping late, or you used to sleep late and now you start waking up 4 a.m. And so it does passive monitoring of the phone, of the deck. And when you have a big behavior change, the first thing it does is reach out to you, then it reaches out to your therapist, and then after that, it reaches out to your support network. MindStrong is a really good example of establishing digital phenotypes, you know, and on and on and on. So I didn't show a lot of examples in the beginning because there's actually just so many. Some of the things that I'm really truly excited about, what I'm really truly excited about is gut biome. And, you know, right now, if you have schizophrenia, it can be identified 90%, 99% of the time through stool. And so there's many people who believe that, who are working on, can you use that to identify depression? And if you can, and there is some sort of gut biome tie, then potentially we could begin to treat at least some kinds of depression at the grocery store, which again is getting people off of molecules. And I'm not anti-molecule, but there's a lot of people on them who maybe don't need that kind of bazooka to their system. And so this is the whole realm. And so all the things that you guys, you know, should be asking, or probably are asking about in terms of, you know, what are the ethical implications? How much is too much? Like digital friends, you know, with children, like how much is too much? These are the sorts of questions that are out there. But, you know, everything that I showed you is in some way, if it wasn't, you know, created, you know, or if it wasn't made possible by AI, it's, you know, going to be made more perfect by the precision and the personalization that machine learning and AI can provide. Okay, so that's it for now.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. So let's go into breakout rooms. What's a good prompt that we should have everyone discussing in the breakout rooms?
I'd like to hear two things from everyone. One, I would like to hear from your own, I would like you to discuss from your own area of specialization, you know, if you were going to make a transformative tech product, what would it be? Something that, you know, touch the inner landscape. So I'm deeply interested in that. And then the second part is, you know, what are you concerned about with this application of artificial intelligence? So what would you make? And what are you concerned about? I'm very eager to know.
And now we're off to the breakout rooms.
I'm so excited. I want to hear what everybody wants to build or what they would build. And I want to hear everyone's concerns. Hi, Ed. Oh, actually, I recognize a lot of people. Todd, we knew we definitely had overlap. So it's nice to see.
Hey, Nicole, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay, cool. So what games were you doing there at Activision? Was it just God of War, or were you on a whole bunch of?
I started out at Disney Interactive, so I worked on, for a couple of years, I worked on every Disney IP that also got a video game, you know, no matter who made it. And then after that, I went to Vivendi Universal. So I worked on Scarface, I worked on Fight Club, which was, I think the review said something like, it's better to have someone beat you with this game than to play it. It's really hard to build a fighting game in 1 year. I also spent a little bit of time on really just a bunch of different types of games. And then after that, I did global corporate strategy and actually worked on the Activision acquisition by Vivendi. And then after that, I moved to China and worked on World of Warcraft, StarCraft. I never worked on God of War. That's a different game and different company. But I worked on World of Warcraft, StarCraft, a little tiny bit of I had all the Asia Pac, or all the traditional and simplified Mandarin localization. So through that, I worked on Diablo 3 and worked on a little bit of the stuff that ultimately became Overwatch.
So, hey, Nicole.
Hi, who is that?
This is Elizabeth.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So, in response to your question, yeah, I'm trying to, build this, or rather make this AI, learn from just an expert.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Suggesting experts, what kind of experts? And also people, could you put it in the chat, just your answers to the 2 questions? What would you make? And what are you concerned about? I would love it if people would just drop that into the chat while we're doing individual questions too. So Elizabeth, what type of, so you're gonna use an AI to recommend experts to people? I think you said?
Just to build it such that it can learn better from experts like farmers.
That it can learn better from, maybe
like farmers, people who grow crops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know much about crops. For the most part, the crops of your imagination, that would be me. Anything internal, your internal landscape is a little bit more of my my expertise. Let's see. I absolutely agree with algorithmic bias, huge issue. An AI that helps you, yeah, visual interface, I love that. Oh, that's great. Carrie, there's an interesting product out there called Replica, and the story on that was a woman was working on a chatbot company, and her best friend died in a car accident. She missed hearing his voice, and so she took over a decade's worth of conversations, emails, text, and dropped it into the neural net to kind of hear his voice. And it's a really interesting product today. It's still, it's neural net plus scripted for interactions that required an evidence-based path. So the neural net is interesting because it makes it say things just crazy enough to keep you interested in hearing what it has to say. And then you can switch to specific subjects. So it's really interesting.
Wow, thank you.
Let's see. Color, audio, EQ, learning, teaching. Yeah, that's absolutely. And there's one interesting product. What they do is computer vision can pick up through your eyes, the whites of your eyes, your heartbeat. And when you go into a stress response, it changes the color on the screen. So it's a subtle intervention. So you kind of know what your good colors are and things that'll calm you down. And so instead of it being a notification that says, you're stressed, it does a subtle change. And they're actually looking for people to work with who might productize it. I agree with you on equity access. Storytelling for mental health, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Implanted caffeine, totally. The neurostim, and there's some interesting things people are doing around mimicking things like that. I agree on AI to help children with special needs, absolutely. For Jeff, there's a really interesting product that I love that you might like called Neosensory. And it's basically haptics. And, you know, it's based on the research that, you know, the brain makes sense of data. That's one of the things that it does. And it doesn't necessarily care about the input. So after about 6 to 8 weeks with a camera or a speaker listening, and then translating that into haptic signals onto the skin, people are able to approximate hearing and approximate seeing well enough to navigate rooms, even though they are blind, by the camera putting haptic signals onto their skin of what's in the space. They're still at the very beginning. They are looking for people to, you know, work with and people to help them productize. I love Eladio AI to help people build confidence and emotional mastery. I love it. I agree. Equality, morality. There's a lot of Black Mirror episodes in this stuff, but we also need to write the White Mirror episodes. The tech is not going back in the bag at all. And so what we truly have to do is build good alternatives that helps. Because right now, all of our tech's on exponential curves and our crisis on exponential curves, but human growth and development is linear and analog. And that gap, you know, is really it's showing up across all of our systems. But I agree with you. There's a lot of potential Black Mirror stuff in this. You guys are so amazing. Todd, would you capture the chat for me? I would love to have it so I can stay in touch with everybody.
For sure, yeah. I download it every time.
There's some really great things in here, you guys. I hope you're all scanning this chat. In the minute that we have left, I really want you to know that I am deeply, deeply interested in supporting your desire to use AI to build well-being tech, transformative tech, and, you know, to get good things into the world that can truly, deeply help people.
And Nicole, just one thing I just wanted to elaborate on about the goggles and stuff. A lot of people are like hands-on creative people. So I'm thinking of like, I built this chair. So instead of going back and seeing the directions all the time and going back to whatever you're doing, or maybe you're doing like a science experiment, like the goggles could just give you the directions in real time and the things in real time. So that way you'd feel like whatever creative spark that people have in them, they could just like let it go without like worrying and just doing it and having fun. And like the goggles could help in that. And then the real-time directions can help in that. I just want to that one out.
Awesome. Well, everyone, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to get the export of the chat so I can stay in touch with you. And, you know, and please, any way that we can help, please let me know. I'm sorry, I have to go because I have another meeting right after this, but it's been truly a pleasure. So
thank you so much, Nicole, for your time and everything.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye. And to everyone else, thank you for joining us today on The New Normal. This was our 10th episode, so we're finally in double digits. And we're excited for our next week's episode on do-it-yourself virtual production with Mariana Acuna Acosta. And so same time, same place. We hope to see you there. But enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all. Be well and be safe. And goodbye. Thank you.